The moment Sarah Winters walked into her daughter's corporate headquarters, James knew his life would never be the same. Their eyes met across the crowded lobby, and 20 years of believing in coincidence vanished in an instant. What he couldn't possibly know then was how their connection would threaten everything he'd worked for, or that choosing between professional loyalty and the most unexpected love of his life would tear apart 3 generations of a family that was already hanging by a thread. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys that explore the complicated intersections of family, career, and unexpected love. James Mitchell straightened his tie as the elevator climbed toward the executive floor. At 35, he'd finally secured his position as right-hand man to tech mogul Alexandra Winters, the youngest CEO on Fortune's 40 Under 40 list and the most demanding boss he'd ever encountered. The promotion had cost him his marriage, most of his friendships, and countless nights of sleep, but standing at Alexandra's side as she revolutionized the industry made every sacrifice worthwhile. Or at least that's what he told himself on mornings like this, running on 3 hours of sleep and his 4th cup of coffee. The Singapore investors are waiting in the conference room, Alexandra's voice cut through his thoughts as she appeared beside him, her sleek blonde hair pulled into a tight bun that emphasized her sharp cheekbones. I need you to charm them while I finish the presentation. My mother's flying in today, and she's already texting about dinner plans. James nodded, mentally rearranging his day. I'll handle it. Do you need me to arrange a car for your mother? Alexandra waved dismissively. She's a grown woman. She can find her way to a hotel without my help. The bitterness in her tone wasn't lost on James, who had pieced together over 3 years that the relationship between Alexandra and her mother was strained at best, hostile at worst. The morning passed in a blur of meetings and crisis management. By noon, James had smoothed over the concerns of the Singapore investors, resolved a supply chain issue threatening their product launch, and drafted 3 press releases. He was heading to grab a quick lunch when the text from Alexandra arrived, "Mother here early." In lobby. Deal with it. James sighed, redirecting toward the elevators. Alexandra's family drama wasn't technically in his job description, but like everything else she demanded, he would handle it with professional courtesy. The doors opened to the grand marble lobby, and his eyes scanned for someone who might resemble his boss, perhaps an older, more severe version of Alexandra's cold beauty. Instead, his gaze landed on a woman with warm auburn hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She stood by the reception desk, dressed in a simple emerald wrap dress that caught the light as she moved. When she turned, James felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a genuine, unexpected jolt of recognition, as though he'd been waiting to meet this woman his entire life. "Mrs. Winters," he approached, extending his hand. "I'm James Mitchell, Alexandra's executive assistant." Her smile transformed her face, creating delicate lines around eyes that were nothing like her daughter's. These were kind, touched with a sadness that seemed permanent but not defeating. "Sarah, please. Mrs. Winters makes me sound like my former mother-in-law, and trust me, that's not a comparison anyone wants." Her hand was warm in his, and she held the handshake a beat longer than necessary. "Alexandra is tied up in meetings, but I'd be happy to show you to her office. She mentioned you weren't expected until this evening." Sarah's laugh was soft and musical. "Alexandra always expects everyone to follow her schedule to the minute. I've learned that sometimes the only way to see my daughter is to arrive unannounced. Otherwise, there's always a last-minute emergency that cancels our plans." The honesty in her voice caught James off guard. In 3 years, he'd never heard anyone speak so candidly about Alexandra's controlling nature. "I understand," he said, surprising himself with his own sincerity. The conference room just cleared out. "Would you like some coffee while you wait? I can't promise when she'll be free." "Coffee would be lovely," Sarah replied. "And some company, if you can spare it. I'd love to hear about what it's like working with my daughter. The Alexandra I know and the CEO the world sees seem like entirely different people sometimes." That afternoon changed everything. What was meant to be a brief courtesy extended into hours of conversation. Sarah spoke of raising Alexandra alone after her husband left when their daughter was just 7, of sacrificing her own dreams of becoming an artist to provide stability, of watching her bright, determined child grow increasingly distant as success claimed more and more of her life. James found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone: his failed marriage, his complicated relationship with his own parents, the novel he'd been writing in secret for years. Sarah listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made him feel truly seen for the first time in longer than he could remember. When Alexandra finally emerged from her meeting, her eyes narrowed at the sight of them laughing together over coffee. "Mother. I see you've made yourself comfortable." The warmth in Sarah's eyes dimmed. "Alexandra. Your assistant has been kind enough to keep me company." "That's what I pay him for," Alexandra replied coolly. "Though I'm sure he has actual work to do. James, the Tokyo contracts need reviewing before tomorrow." The dismissal was clear. James stood, suddenly uncomfortable in the chilly atmosphere between mother and daughter. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Sarah." "Likewise, James." Her smile felt like a secret between them. That night, unable to sleep, James found himself staring at his phone, thumb hovering over Sarah's contact information. She'd given it to him, in case Alexandra's plans change again. It was inappropriate. She was his boss's mother. She was 15 years his senior. There were 1,000 reasons not to text her. He texted her anyway. Over the next few weeks, what began as occasional messages evolved into daily conversations. They met for coffee when Sarah was still in town, then dinner when Alexandra cancelled their plans again. James found himself sharing parts of his manuscript with Sarah, who revealed she'd returned to painting in recent years. Their connection deepened with each conversation, each shared confidence, each moment of understanding. "She'll fire you if she finds out," Sarah warned one evening as they walked through the park, their hands occasionally brushing in a way that sent electricity through James's entire body. "I know," he admitted. "But for the first time in years, I'm thinking about what I want instead of what Alexandra wants. That has to count for something." Their first kiss happened on a rainy Tuesday, sheltered under the awning of a closed bookshop. Sarah pulled away first, her eyes troubled. "This is complicated, James." "She's my daughter." "And my boss," he agreed. "But I've never felt this way about anyone." "Have you?" The vulnerability in his question hung between them until Sarah shook her head. "Not even with Alexandra's father. That's what scares me." The affair, though both hated that word for what was growing between them, continued in secret. James compartmentalized his life, dedicated executive by day, man falling deeply in love by night. He began to see Alexandra through new eyes, understanding the wounded child beneath the demanding CEO, recognizing patterns Sarah had described from Alexandra's childhood. The crisis came 3 months later when Alexandra, suspicious of James's distraction, checked his company phone records. The frequency of calls to her mother's number told the story before James could even attempt to explain. The confrontation in Alexandra's office was nuclear. "My mother? Of all the women in New York, you chose my mother?" Alexandra's voice trembled with rage and something deeper, betrayal. "Did you think about what this would do to me? To this company? To her?" "It wasn't planned, Alexandra," James said quietly. "It just happened." "Things don't just happen, James. People make choices. You made yours." She turned away, her shoulders rigid. "You're fired. Clear out your desk today. And stay away from my mother. She doesn't need another man using her to get to me." The accusation stung because it was so fundamentally wrong. "This has nothing to do with you," James insisted. "What I feel for Sarah is real." "Get out," Alexandra whispered, her voice deadly quiet. "Before I call security." The weeks that followed were the hardest of James's life. Sarah, torn between her daughter and the man she'd fallen in love with, stopped answering his calls. His career, built on Alexandra's reputation, crumbled as word spread of his dismissal. The novel he'd been writing with Sarah's encouragement sat untouched on his laptop. Rock bottom came on a cold Sunday morning when James found himself outside Sarah's apartment building, debating whether to buzz her intercom or accept that it was truly over. Before he could decide, the door opened, and Sarah stepped out, her eyes widening at the sight of him. James. His name on her lips sounded like both a prayer and a warning. "I had to see you," he said simply. "Alexandra thinks I was using you to get to her somehow." "You can't believe that." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Of course I don't. But she's my daughter, James. My only child. She won't speak to me now. She's hurting." "And what about your hurt?" James asked gently. "Don't you deserve happiness too?" The question hung between them, unanswerable in that moment. Sarah reached out, touching his face briefly. "I need time." "We both do." Time passed slowly. James found a new job at a smaller firm, began rebuilding his career from the ground up. He finished his novel, pouring his heart into the story of unexpected love and difficult choices. When it sold to a publisher, the first person he wanted to tell was Sarah, but he respected her request for space. 6 months after their separation, a familiar name appeared in his email inbox. Alexandra Winters. The message was brief: "Coffee. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. The usual place." Curiosity overcame caution, and James found himself sitting across from his former boss the next day. Alexandra looked different, softer somehow, the perpetual tension in her shoulders less pronounced. "I read your book," she said without preamble. "The advance copy your publisher sent to influential people." James felt his chest tighten. The novel, while fiction, drew heavily from his feelings for Sarah. "And? It's good," Alexandra admitted reluctantly. "Really good, actually. And it made me realize something." She paused, visibly struggling with her next words. "My mother has spent her entire life putting me first. Every decision, every sacrifice, it was all for me. And how did I repay her? By resenting her for not being perfect, for making mistakes, for being human." James remained silent, sensing Alexandra needed to continue without interruption. When you fell for each other, I made it about me. Again." She looked up, meeting his eyes directly. "She misses you. She won't say it, but I can tell. And I think I've been selfish long enough." The permission, unspoken but clear, hung between them. James felt hope unfurling in his chest for the first time in months. "I never wanted to come between you." "I know that now," Alexandra said. "It took me reading your stupid beautiful book to see it, but I know." She stood, gathering her coat. "Fix this, James. Make her happy. That's an order from your former boss." The reconciliation wasn't immediate or simple. Trust had been damaged, hearts had been guarded. But when James appeared at Sarah's door with a copy of his published novel and the truth about Alexandra's change of heart, the wall between them began to crumble. "She really gave us her blessing?" Sarah asked, disbelief coloring her voice. In her own Alexandra way, James confirmed. "I think she's learning that loving someone means wanting their happiness, even when it's complicated." Their first kiss was sweeter than the first, carrying with it the weight of what they'd endured and the promise of what could be. 3 months later, when James proposed on the steps of the bookshop where they'd first kissed, Sarah's yes was immediate and certain. The wedding was small, intimate, and to everyone's surprise, Alexandra offered to host it at her Hamptons estate. As Sarah walked down the aisle toward James, her daughter stood proudly as her maid of honor, a visual representation of the healing that had taken place between them. "I never thought I'd be giving my mother away at her wedding," Alexandra whispered to James before the ceremony. But I'm glad it's to you. You see her, really see her, in a way I'm not sure anyone ever has. Years passed. James's writing career flourished alongside his marriage. Sarah's paintings began showing in galleries across the city. Alexandra, softened by witnessing genuine love, eventually found her own partner who valued her for more than her success. On their 5th anniversary, as they sat on the porch of their weekend cottage watching the sunset, Sarah took James's hand. Do you ever regret it? All the complications, the pain we went through? James considered the question seriously. I regret the hurt it caused, especially to Alexandra. But regret meeting you? Loving you? Never. He squeezed her hand. Some people go their whole lives without finding what we have. I'd walk through fire all over again to be sitting here with you. Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder, the last rays of sunlight catching the silver strands now mingling with her auburn hair. Me too, she whispered. Every complicated, beautiful step. Their story wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was theirs, a testament to the truth that love doesn't always arrive in expected packages or at convenient times. Sometimes it appears in the most unlikely places, between the most unlikely people, and demands the courage to reach for happiness even when the path is difficult. And in the end, that courage made all the difference. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complicated, beautiful, messy reality of love and family. Remember that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that challenge us to grow, to forgive, and to believe that happiness is possible, even when it comes in unexpected forms.